whenever you are ready to apply for a visa. So you need a few things before you can apply. The first thing you need is, obviously, you need to be accepted into a school or university. You know, there are various types of student visas, but you need to be accepted before you should apply. The next thing is you received your I-20 or your DS 2019. That's, an I-20 is what F1 students use, so usually like language students or students that are going for study for like bachelor's or master's degrees. DS 2019, usually used by people going for special programs like internships or like Bolshak sometimes. Okay? And then the third thing is you should have secured funding for your study, right? You have to be able to show how you're going to pay for your study, whether that's private funds like your family or you've saved up, or maybe you got a scholarship or a grant from the university. You should have all of that completed. And one important thing to note is that if you come for a visa interview and you're given a visa, we can only issue the visa in your passport 120 days before you would go to the United States for your study, before your school's registration date. So if you come really early and it's like more than 120 days, and if they approve you, then what we would say is, okay, come back in a month or two when it's closer, and then we'll issue your visa. So just keep that in mind, okay? So what kind of student visa should you apply for? Well, it depends on what you're trying to do. Like I said, F1 student visas are for undergraduate, so baccalaureate, magistratura, so bachelor's, master's, PhD, of course. Sometimes J1s for PhDs. And then full-time English language study. If you're going, let's say you want to take the IELTS or the, I forget what the other English language test is. You guys know. TOEFL, thank you, TOEFL. Sometimes people want to go for 2 months or 3 months just to really cram, study really hard to try and improve their test or something like that. That would be an F1. J1 exchange, like I said, is either high school or university exchange students, so it's usually a special program, something you're going for. And then an M1 is a non-academic or vocational training, so it's like a little different, not a normal university degree. So the steps for applying, the first step, of course, is you should look at your passport. If your passport is going to expire in the next 6 to 8 months or before you leave, you should think about renewing your passport because you want to have more validity on your passport. You don't want it to expire while you're in the United States. And you wouldn't be able to travel on a passport with usually less than 6 months validity. We wouldn't put a visa in it either. We would say, please go get a new passport, come back, and then we'll put the visa in. Second, you want a recent photo, so it has to be less than 6 months old. You can't wear glasses in it, so you would have to take your glasses off for your photo. And it should be 5 centimeters by 5 centimeters. You can always tell the person at the photo place, Amerikansky, they'll know 5 by 5. And you need to complete a visa application. We call it a DS-160. So you go online, you fill out the application, you pay the application fee of $160, and then you pay a SEVIS fee, which is a fee because you're going for a student visa. For F and M, it's $200, and for a J, it's $150. And then the last thing you would do after you've done all those steps is that you have to schedule your interview, and you do that online. You find a date that's open for student slot, for a student appointment, and you can choose a student appointment.
Sorry I'm late.
No problem. No problem. Well, oh, yes, sir.
In 2017, I already visited US. And
Okay.
what documents could be reused and what exactly should be new?
New. It depends on what you're doing and what you are using. What do you have an idea in your mind what you're thinking about? Which documents?
For example, DS 100.
It would be a new one. It's a new one. Every time you do a new appointment, it's a new DS 160. You might have a profile in the system online,
Yes.
and you can use the information from your profile to apply for a new application, but you pay a new fee every time you have an appointment, and you would get a new appointment letter, a new DS 160. Good question. Yeah, the computer allows you to pull your information from your profile, but you have to fill out a new application. Yeah. Okay, so you've been accepted to a school. You secured funding. You got your your I-20 or your DS 2019 from your school. You know who's paying for it. You have all this information. You've applied. You paid the application fee. You paid your SEVIS fee. All of that. Now what? What's next? You have your interview, right? So what do you bring to the interview? The most important things that you should be bringing to your interview are obviously your passport. You have to have you should bring your passport. If you have an old passport that you have copies of that shows previous use, like previous travel, bring that. It's never a bad idea to have that with you. And it's good to make a copy of your passport before you get a new one and turn it in, because then you can see, people will see, oh, where you've traveled. You can show it as proof of where you've traveled. Okay? Your photo, as I mentioned, your 5x5 centimeter photo. Your original I-20 or your DS 2019, depending on which kind of visa you're applying for. Okay? Your confirmation of the DS 160, so what your question, which was, can I reuse that? No, you do a new application, and you print out your confirmation sheet and bring that with you. Your receipt of your visa fee, which is kind of what that is, and your SEVIS fee payment. So there's a page that shows that you've paid your SEVIS fee. Either $200 for an F or M, or $180 for a J visa. If you have school transcripts that matter for what you're asking, for what you're trying to apply for, you would want to bring those. And your scores from standardized tests. Let's say you're going for an MBA, or you're going for a bachelor's or a master's, and you want to show, look, I took the SATs, look, I took the GMAT, look, I took, whatever test. Bring your scores. The consular officer might ask to see that. They might want to know, hey, what'd you get on your GMAT? Hey, what'd you get on your SATs? Okay. The other important thing, besides these documents, if you have anything else that you think is helpful for you to describe and to show your ties to Kazakhstan, okay? Whether that's a scholarship letter, let's say your school gave you a scholarship, make sure you bring the letter that says, we're giving, this person a scholarship for this much money. That's important. We want to know that you've received that, okay? Or anything else of that nature. Like I said, old passports, if you have old travel, like from a few years ago, but it's not new, you just got a new passport. If you have copies, bring that, just in case. We might ask you, hey, have you been abroad before? Have you gone to other countries? And you say, yeah, I've been. And I look in your passport and I think, there's no stamps in here. And you say, oh, it's my old passport. Okay, so if you have copies, bring it, just in case. The reason I say that is, when we are interviewing you, the thing we're looking for, well, a couple of things. We want to ensure that you have a home here, right? That this is where your residence is. This is where you live in Kazakhstan, right? And that you're not going to abandon it. That you're going to come back. After you finish your study, after you finish whatever you're doing in the United States, that you're going to come back. And that you have enough money to cover the time you're going to be in the US for your tuition, for your rent, for your books, for your food, for anything else that will happen while you're there, okay? Education in the US is really expensive. I know, because I have a lot of student loans. I'm still paying for my education. It's quite expensive, so we have to be confident that you have the resources to cover your education, okay? Any questions so far on any of that?
How much money should we have?
It depends. I mean, it's a hard, there's no right answer because some people are only going for 1 month for ESL, right? They just want to go 1 month. I want to go 3 weeks to improve because I'm about to take, you know, the TOEFL test and I want to just really, the person already speaks pretty good English, but maybe they're like, I just want to give myself a little bit of a boost. So I'm going to go for 3 weeks, study really, really hard, and then I'm going to take the TOEFL test, right? Some people have done that. They don't need as much money because they're only going for maybe 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, you know, like 1 to 3 months. So it's not quite as expensive for them, depending on the program, depending on where they're going. It's a lot more expensive to study in New York than it is to study in Wisconsin or Texas, right? So depending on where you go, it's more expensive too. But if you're going to a bachelor's program and you're going to, I mean, even a state level university, even like a Oklahoma State, I mean, you're talking tens of thousands of dollars, you know, I mean, it's expensive. So keep that in mind when you're looking at programs or you're thinking about the US. Not to discourage you, but just to say it is a challenge. There are a lot of expenses involved and you have to have a good understanding of your goal and how you're going to pay for it. Because if you're worried about paying for it and you don't have that figured out, it's not a great idea to go to the US and start your education, right? Because then you get stuck and then you're panicked because you've done half of an education and you can't afford to finish it, and nobody wants that, right? So let's say I went for my appointment, I provided all my information, the consular officer was like, yes, that sounds like a good plan, you've got the funds, you're coming back to Kazakhstan, you definitely don't want to illegally, you know, move to the US permanently, I'm confident of that, and you have ties here, strong ties. Great, here's your, you know, I'm going to give you we're going to approve your visa. So what do I do? What should I think about now? Okay, a visa is not a guaranteed entry into the US. What a visa is the ability to get on a plane, fly to the US, and knock on the door of the United States, okay? What it means is you can present yourself at a port of entry, usually at an airport, and present yourself to an immigration officer, and they decide if you can come in. So some people who have not good intentions, who have maybe lied or have not been truthful about what they're doing, maybe something happens and the immigration officer says, it seems like you're gonna stay. I don't think you're coming in, right? You know, so that happens sometimes. They get turned around and sent back, maybe, because they've done some things and it's clear that they're intending to stay and maybe not go to school. But for most people, it's no big deal. They walk up, they present themselves. Why are you here? You explain, you show your information. Oh, sorry, your I-120 form, the F1, like if you're an F1 student, or your DS 2019, if you're a J1 student, you would have that with you. You would carry that on the plane. Because then you can show that to the officer and say, see, I'm enrolled at the University of Oklahoma. I'm going for my bachelor's. I'm really excited. It's my first year, right? They're going to know, and they're going to go, okay, stamp your visa, right? Or, excuse me, stamp your passport and let you in. You can stay. Once they do that, usually they'll give you up to 5 years full-time study. Full-time, if you're on that kind of program. If you're on a shorter program, like an ESL program, it'll be shorter. But for like full-time bachelor's, let's say, or master's, it could be a number of years. And if you don't leave the States, you can just stay that entire time, even if the visa expires, because they've given you permission to stay. If you leave the United States for more than 5 months, you would just have to come reapply for a new visa to go back. Like, let's say you leave after a year of study, you come back to the Kazakhstan for, you know, vacation, but then you end up staying a little longer and it's over 5 months, then you would just have to apply again for a new visa. Okay? And let's see, what else? What did I miss? Oh, when can you travel? Oh, yes.
You just said that 5 months we can return for vacation.
Yeah,
And if it's less than 5 months, legally we can return to US.
yes, yes, without a new visa, yes. You can come back on the same visa as long as you haven't been out of the US for 5 months, for student visas. This is student visas only, what I'm talking about.
Both F1 and J1.
Yes, as long as it's, but J1s are usually shorter, so that's usually with F1s, because F1s are usually the ones where people are doing like long programs, like bachelor's and master's programs, usually, like full programs. You can travel to the US up to 30 days before your program starts. So like if your classes start August 24th, you could go, at the end of July, right? And that would give you time to like settle in and figure everything out and, kind of deal with life before classes start. As I mentioned, make sure you keep your documents in your luggage that you carry with you on the plane, not the luggage that goes under the plane, because you'll need that document when you go through customs before you get your baggage. Okay, that's an important thing too. And how long can you stay? As I mentioned, you can stay as long as you're a full-time student on a program for up to 5 years total. Okay. And I was just saying this. When do you need a new student visa? If you leave for more than 5 months. Now, keep in mind, if you told me that you were only going for 3 months for study, ESL study, let's say, and you do your 3 months and you leave, and then you try to go back, the immigration officer might be confused about why you're coming back if you've already completed your 3-month program. But for people who have long programs, like bachelor's or master's, it would make sense that you would want to leave once in a while and see your family or take a vacation, right? You need a new student visa if you left the US and your visa is expired. Okay, you'd have to come, do an appointment, and get a new visa if your visa is expired. Also, if you change schools before you enter the US, let's say you just didn't like that school or something happened and you wanted to transfer, you would need a new visa. You'd have to do a new appointment with a new visa. That's because each time you register with a school and you're accepted, you get a SEVIS number. And if you move from one school to another, your SEVIS number changes. So you have to have a different visa and visa appointment associated with that new SEVIS number. And lastly, if you postpone enrollment and have a new I-20 and new SEVIS number, like if you just something doesn't work out, let's say your mom gets sick or something happens and you just can't go that semester, so you just say, I'm going to postpone. I told the university they're letting you wait, a semester because you just need personal time. Then you need to reapply. Okay. Don't confuse your visa expiration with your authorized length of stay, meaning exactly what I said before. If you have a visa, you get to the port of entry, they let you in. As long as you stay in the US and they gave you permission to be there for a certain amount of time, let's say 5 years, if your visa expires while you're in the US, that's okay. Because your permission from the man or the woman at the border is the thing that tells you how long you can stay in the US. Okay? Oh, also, this gets people in trouble. If you drop classes, let's say you're a full-time student, they're on an F1. If you drop classes and are no longer a full-time student, that's a problem. You fall out of student status and you would be basically not in the terms of your visa agreement anymore. So you would have to leave. You would be not in status and you would need to leave the US. And if you complete your program, yay, if you graduate or finish whatever it is you're doing, you have to leave within 60 days of completion. You can't just hang out for a few, like 3 or 4 months. You have to leave within 60 days because you're there as a student and your visa is a student visa. So if you finish your program, you have to leave within that 60 days after finishing. Okay?
2 years?
You know, most programs are 2 years, but sometimes they're 3. Yeah. And for masters, I think you still have. I'm trying to remember if you still could have up to 5 if you needed it, but you have to be full time, which for a master's program would never happen. So I would say probably up to 3, but it really depends. It's most people it's 2 years. For most people, it's usually 2 years. So what's expected of you while you're in the U.S.? So of course you have to obey local laws, just like I obey local laws here. And obey immigration laws, so make sure you're not working illegally or, you know, dropping out of school or whatever, like, you know, and staying in the U.S. So obeying the terms of your visa. You know, I didn't go to school here, so I don't know what the culture of universities and colleges and high schools are here, but I know in the U.S., that's where I went. There are some places that are quite strict about attendance, about completing all assignments. It's not just one test at the end of the year, but in some classes it's many things, many assignments, a midterm, a final. So it's important to, you know, complete all your assignments on time, not to kind of skip class, even though like some American kids love to skip class, but then they're always complaining at the end of the semester when they're struggling to get a good grade. You know, the university system is exam-based in the US, so exams matter. And cheating is extremely serious. If you're caught cheating, you could be expelled from your school and you would lose your status in the US. Likewise, if you were to commit a crime, you could lose your status. So it's just really important to make good decisions, not follow some other people's kind of poor behavior or decisions, and just to be really, you know, mindful of what you're doing and why. Ultimately, you're the reason you'll succeed in the U.S. and so not depending on others and saying, no, it's fine, it's fine. No, you know what's right for you. So just being careful about that kind of thing. I've had kids or young people come to me, they studied for 2 or 3 years in the US, then they came home, something bad happened in the US, let's say they came home for vacation, then they come to me for a new visa, and they're standing in front of me and we're talking about, oh, you go to this university, oh. Any other questions? Yeah, you're welcome. Oh, yeah, any other questions I'm happy to answer. I'll try my best to answer if you haven't had them. Otherwise, I know I saw some of you came a little late, so do you want me to go back? I can,
Yeah.
you missed the first couple. Let's see. So I think you probably want, let's see, this one. So did you get that one? The steps for applying? Yeah, this one might be helpful and useful to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. No problem. And if you need any other slides, let me know. I can go to those if you want to take a picture. And actually, one other thing I was going to say. Sometimes people are refused. And it doesn't mean it's that consular officer that has refused you on that day. You are free to apply again. Okay, you are free. You may apply again. If I have refused you, and you think, oh, I didn't explain as well as I wanted. I was too nervous, or I was really sick, or something, whatever, or I missed something, or I don't think she understood one of the things I was trying to tell her. Whatever, you can apply again. A new consular officer will interview you. Okay, just so you know that.
In how long period of time I can apply again?
Whenever you want. You can go home and get online and apply again. But, you know, there is a wait time because our appointments get filled, you know, so there's not always an appointment immediately. You might have to wait a couple weeks because we're busy. Like right now it's becoming very busy, because everybody wants to go on vacation for the summer, you know, canicula and all that, but, so you might have to wait a few weeks, but you can definitely apply again. Frequently? Do you come here once in a while? Or is this is this anybody's first time here?
No.
No? Not first time, your first time? Great, welcome. Well, we have a lot of programs. And I just want to make people, it seems like all of you are aware, but I know there are calendars up there, I believe, at the front desk, or up on the shelf. Lots of cool programming. Every Tuesday evening is English Language Discussion Club. You can register for that if you have any interest. It's nice if you're like just practicing your English. Every week it's a different topic, and it's always a native speaker that facilitates the discussion. So.
And what time?
Sure, it's at 7. Is it 6 or 7? 6, thank you, I couldn't remember. Yeah, it's 6 p.m. on Tuesdays.
Need to registration.
You register online. Yep, you register online.
Right in our meeting community.
Yeah, and our American Space Coordinator, I think she's in that back office right now, but I'm sure she'd be happy to explain it, like give you more information. Yeah. It's pretty popular. We usually have 2 groups every Tuesday, one in the back room and one out here. We usually talk about like current topics, you know, like when it was Nowruz, they talked about Nowruz, like when it was Women's History Month right now in the US, so we'd be talking about that. February, there were lots of different topics. March, oh God, we're in April now. Time is flying. So yeah, lots of different, and you can just hang out here. There's books, there's, you know, things to do.